0-100 to 0-30. Hook. Financial advisors have been telling you to follow the 4% rule for 30 years. Withdraw 4% of your portfolio each year and it lasts 30 years. That's the promise. But the 4% rule was invented in 1994. William Bengen published his original paper when 10-year Treasury bonds yielded 7%. Today they yield something very different. And a 30-year retirement assumes you retire at 65. If you're watching this and you're planning to retire at 50 or 55, you need a completely different number. I'm going to show you the updated math. And here's the thing that might surprise you. The answer isn't worse than 4%. For people who know what to adjust, it's actually better. 0-30 to 130. Intro. This is not another video telling you to save more and spend less. This is about the math behind how long your money actually lasts. And how small adjustments to your withdrawal strategy can add years of security without requiring more savings. By the end of this video, you'll understand what Bengen's study actually said, and what it didn't, how current market conditions change the math, why flexible withdrawal strategies outperform the rigid 4% rule, what portfolio size you actually need to retire on $50,000 versus $100,000 per year, and the one number that matters more than any of these. 130 to 330. What the Bengen study actually said. In 1994, financial planner William Bengen published a paper in the Journal of Financial Planning. He analyzed 50 years of historical U.S. market data, from 1926 to 1976, and asked a specific question. What is the highest fixed withdrawal rate that would have survived every 30-year retirement window? In that dataset without the portfolio going to zero? The answer was 4.15%. Rounded to 4%. That's it. That's the entire origin of the rule. What Bengen's study did not say. That 4% is optimal. That it applies to retirements longer than 30 years. That it applies to portfolios with different asset allocations than his assumed 50-50 stock-bond mix. Or that it applies to any future period. It was backward-looking historical analysis. For a 65-year-old retiring today and living to 95, a 30-year runway is appropriate. For a 50-year-old, you're planning for a 40 to 45-year retirement. Bengen's data doesn't cover that scenario. The historical analysis shows that for 40-year retirements, the safe withdrawal rate drops to approximately 3.5%. That's the actual number for early retirees who follow a rigid rule. The current bond yield environment also matters. In 1994, a 50-50 stock-bond portfolio had significant yield support from bonds. Today, even with rates having risen from the near-zero era, the math is different enough that fixed-rate analysis requires updated inputs. 3:30 to 6 o'clock. The flexible withdrawal approach. What the research shows. Here's where the update gets interesting. Researcher Michael Kitces, one of the most rigorous quantitative minds in retirement planning, has published extensively on why flexible withdrawal strategies dramatically outperform rigid 4%. Fixed withdrawals. The core insight: if you withdraw a fixed 4% of your portfolio every year regardless of market conditions, you are systematically selling assets at the worst possible times. During a bear market, you liquidate investments at depressed prices to fund living expenses. A flexible approach, where you reduce withdrawals by 10 to 15% in years when the portfolio is down, preserves capital during drawdowns and allows full recovery. The Guyton-Klinger decision rules are the most studied version of this. They work like this. Your base withdrawal rate is 5% instead of 4, but you follow 3 guardrails. First, the withdrawal rate rule. If your withdrawal rate rises above 6% of current portfolio value, you cut distributions by 10%. Second, The portfolio management rule. You never take a withdrawal increase if your portfolio declined last year. Third, the prosperity rule. If your portfolio grows enough to lower your withdrawal rate below 4% of current value, you increase spending by 10%. The result in simulation studies. A 5% initial withdrawal rate with Guyton-Klinger rules has a higher success rate over 40 years than a rigid 4% rule, because the flexibility absorbs bad sequence of returns years without permanently impairing the portfolio. The practical translation. You can withdraw more, 4.5% to 5%, if you commit to spending less in bad market years. Most retirees can naturally do this without it feeling like sacrifice. Travel and discretionary spending tend to naturally decline in years when markets look scary. 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. The 3-scenario spreadsheet. Let me show you the 3 scenarios that actually matter for planning. All 3 assume a $1 million starting portfolio and a 40-year retirement horizon. Show spreadsheet on screen. Scenario 1. Rigid 3% withdrawal. Annual income. $30,000. Portfolio survival probability over 40 years. Essentially 100% under historical U.S. market returns. The downside. Most people can't live on $30,000. This is the ultra-conservative approach. Scenario 2. Rigid 4% withdrawal. Annual income. $40,000. Survival probability. Approximately 87 to 90% for a 40-year period using historical data. Dropping to 78% if bond yields remain below historical averages. This is the standard advice. And for a 40-year retirement, it's uncomfortably close to 80% success. Scenario 3. Flexible 5% withdrawal with Guyton-Klinger guardrails. Starting annual income. $50,000. Simulated survival probability for 40 years. Approximately 92 to 95% in Monte Carlo modeling. The caveat. You must be willing to cut spending by 10% in down market years. If you can do that, you retire with more income and similar or better safety than rigid 4%. 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. How much do you actually need? Let me give you the simple math for your own situation. Show formula on screen. Target portfolio equals annual spending divided by withdrawal rate. For $50,000 per year in retirement expenses. At 4% rigid, you need $1,250,000. At 3.5%, 40-year horizon conservative, you need $1,428,571. At 5% flexible, Guyton-Klinger, you need $1 million. For $100,000 per year in retirement expenses. At 4%, you need $2,500,000. At 3.5%, you need $2,857,143. At 5% flexible, you need $2 million. The difference between a flexible and rigid approach is real. $500,000 on a $100,000 per year lifestyle goal. That's potentially several additional years of working life. Depending on your savings rate. One more variable that meaningfully changes the math. Social Security. Even partial Social Security income dramatically reduces your required portfolio withdrawal rate. If you collect $24,000 per year in Social Security at 67 and you need $70,000 per year in total income, your portfolio only needs to generate $46,000 per year. Dropping your effective withdrawal rate below 4% even on a $1.2 million portfolio. For early retirees who won't receive Social Security for 15 to 20 years after retiring, this benefit is delayed but not eliminated. You can model it as a portfolio relief valve that kicks in later and allows a more aggressive early withdrawal strategy. 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock. The practical plan. Here is how to apply all of this. First, calculate your personal withdrawal rate projection using this formula. Second, if you're planning a retirement longer than 30 years, plan for 3.5% rigid or 5% flexible, not 4%. Third, build in a flexible spending buffer. Decide now which categories of spending you'd cut by 10 to 15% in a major market decline. Travel, dining, entertainment, the discretionary layer. This commitment, made in advance, is the entire edge of the flexible approach. Fourth, use a retirement tracker to monitor your actual withdrawal rate every year. I use Personal Capital. It connects to all my accounts, shows portfolio value, and I can quickly calculate my real withdrawal rate against current balance. It's free. Link is in the description. Fifth, revisit the math every 3 years. Market returns, bond yields, and your actual spending will all drift. The number you calculated today should be updated periodically. 12 o'clock to 1300. CTA. The 4% rule is not broken in the sense that it never works. It works fine for a 30-year retirement with a rigid spending plan. What's broken is treating it as a universal law. For early retirees, long retirements, and anyone willing to build in spending flexibility, better options exist. I've linked a free retirement calculator in the description that lets you model all 3 scenarios. Rigid 3%, rigid 4%, and flexible 5%, against your own portfolio and spending. No email required. If this was useful, subscribe. I post 2 videos every day covering personal finance, investing, and passive income with real numbers. Drop a comment telling me what withdrawal rate you're planning around. I'm curious where people are landing.